Right. Everybody. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. I love that you're all here. And thank you to Emory University Continuing Education for generously hosting this free workshop. And another big thank you to our rock star facilitator, Carolyn. You can reach out to her via Q&A if you're having difficulties. We're going to be using Q&A today instead of chat. You can find it at the bottom of your screen. So if you're used to doing chat, you'll see Q&A. I even found it because I don't usually work in that. So you can do it. We can all do it. So you can reach out to her if you're having difficulties. Please be patient because we have a great, big, full, awesome group here today. I'm so excited. So you're certainly not alone if you're hoping it's not too late to follow your dreams. And spoiler alert, it's never too late. So let me go over here and share my screen so I can pop that behind. And here we are. I can get that out of your way, I think. There we go. Okay, just in case you wonder what you wandered into, and I hope this is where we are. I'll let you read that. It's never too late to follow your dreams. And in case you didn't read the description, or you can't remember, and it's actually good for me to take another peek at it, this is what we're going to be covering this morning. So take a minute with this. Okay. And then, in case we're not friends yet, this is who I am. And I'll give you a second with that. And then I'm going to come right back to you. And if you're still coming in, hi, everybody. And I'm coming back to you now. Hi. So I just want to say, if you're dropping questions into Q&A, because we are such a good big group, it's going to take a while to get to them. And I am going to try to include as many questions as I can and bring them into the workshop. But if I don't get to you, I just want you to know I'm going to download them all and spend some really good time with them. And that will allow us to continue the conversation. Or I'll cover it and I'll get to it anyway, but that's my plan. So anything that you put in that Q&A, I will eventually see. And if it's a technical issue, Carolyn's going to try to get to it as fast as she can. So thank you for your patience. And this is just such good news that we all are here. So we're all different. Our goals and beliefs, our styles and personalities. So if something I say to you today doesn't resonate for you, just ignore it. We'll move on and hopefully the next thing will. But if something I say provokes a strong negative reaction, like, oh, that Claire Cook, she has no idea what she's talking about, or that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, or I don't need that, write it down. My suggestion is to write it down. And in a day or two, a week or two, go back to it. I don't know about you, but sometimes the thing I most need to hear to get to my next step is the thing I really don't want to hear. So it happens to me all the time. I'll get red notes or track changes on a manuscript or something, or feedback on something else I've done. And your initial thing is to shut down and say, that's not true, that's not true. But if you take a breath, put it aside, for me, it can take a couple days, and go back to it, then suddenly it's like, oh yeah. And even if it's not the point that the other person was making, that say I'm making, it could lead you somewhere else good. So that's my advice. I try to do it myself. The other little piece of advice is to listen for those golden nuggets. Instead of stressing out about every single thing and not missing anything and getting it all down, if you can just stay open and get one or two things in this workshop in these next 2 hours that you can take with you on the rest of your journey, that's a huge win. So I try to do that too. And it takes the pressure off a little. So be listening for your golden nuggets in this, and hopefully you'll get some. Okay, some of you already know it, but I'm going to tell my story, a quick run through of my story, simply because it's an encouraging story. And I think the biggest thing it shows is that you can make a whole bunch of mistakes and still have your happy ending, still have it turn out pretty well. So I have known that I wanted to be a writer from the time I was a little girl. I grew up as one of 8 kids. And in those great big messy families, you just want one thing that's just for you. And so very early on, I grabbed writer. And when I was 6, I had my first story published in the Little People's page of the Sunday paper. And it was about Hot Dog, our family dachshund. And we didn't really have a dachshund. And we actually had, I think it was a beagle at the time. And I was clearly already never going to make it as a journalist. I was making things up already. It's a good thing I'm not a journalist, because I'd probably be in trouble. But so anyway, that was my first. By the time I was 16, I had front page features on our local weekly. And I was also writing really, really bad poetry that I thought was so profound. So I was that girl. And then I went off and majored in film and creative writing in college. And I, studied with writers whose names you might know, who told me that I had potential and blah, 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 all of that. And so anyway, I guess I thought that I would pick up my diploma and go the next morning. I'd wake up, go into labor, and give birth to a book. I just thought that was the path I was on. I was going there, end of story. Didn't happen. I panicked. I choked. I just started listening to everybody's negativity, which is a theme you're going to hear again and again this morning. And I didn't really go for it. I mean, I did a little bit of writing. I did a little advertising, a little bit of magazine work. I was continuity director of a little radio station. But then I got married. I had a couple of kids. I followed them into their artsy little school as a teacher. I meant to stay for a year or two. I stayed for 16 years. Loved the kids, loved teaching, but I was hiding. This was just it was the wrong pond for me, although it gave me tons of material, but it was not where I should have been. So time flies, life goes on. Suddenly I'm in my 40s and I am sitting outside my daughter's swim practice at 5:30 in the morning, and it hit me with the force of a midlife tidal wave that I might live my whole life and never once go for it. I mean, not even try. It wasn't like I was writing short stories and trying to get them published or journaling even. I was doing none of it. I joke that I didn't even write thank you notes because it would, for a couple of decades. So if I owe you one from back then, I'm really sorry. But anything to do with writing, because it was the thing I most wanted in the whole world and the thing I was most afraid of, anything to do with that would just throw me into kind of massive anxiety, and I would bury those feelings again. So that's what I did. So it just hit me that I might not even try. So I spent an entire winter sitting outside during swim practice before I went to work as a teacher for the day. And I was also consulting for 2 other schools. My daughter was swimming twice a day. My son was doing karate and soccer. It was just the busiest time, but I sat there morning after morning and wrote the draft of a book. Was it terrifying? Absolutely. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if it would be any good. I didn't know if it would ever see the light of the world, if people would ever read it. I didn't know, but I just day after day did it. Because for me, suddenly the pain of not doing it, the pain of procrastinating, of pretending I didn't need to do this, it became more painful than actually doing it. And I think there's just a place where that happens. It can happen earlier in your life. I mean, there are plenty of people having quarter life crises and plenty of people having 3/4 life crises. It just happens when it happens. So, and that's when it happened for me. So anyway, all this terrible pain and angst and everything else. And I finished the book, and it ended up selling to the first publisher who asked to read it, which is a whole nother story in itself. So, but the point of telling it now is that many, many really good books take a long time to find a home. But in my case, I was so clearly, the universe was telling me, hey, you were the one standing in your own way this entire time. I feel like it might also have been a factor that because I procrastinated for so long, the universe also was saying, oh, that poor woman, just cut her some slack, give her a little break. But anyway, so the first book was published to a tiny, tiny publisher. But by the second book, suddenly I had a big agent. It went to auction. It was life-changing, and it became a bestseller. And then it was optioned. You can see the movie poster, which is actually from a bus stop. It's one of those big bus stop posters behind me with from Must Love Dogs, and you can see Diane Lane and John Cusack behind me. So that became the thing that happened. First book published at 45. I walked the red carpet at the Hollywood premiere of the adaptation of my second book, the year I turned 50. I wish for all of you to have an experience like that one day, at least one, maybe even a few. Again, and now you just saw my bio. I'm the New York Times and USA Today and international bestselling author of 23 books, translated into 14 languages. I've spoken all over the world at conferences. I get to do cool things like this. And it's the reason I'm telling you all this is this could so easily have been the thing I didn't do. I was that close to never doing it. It was, so I encourage all of you, whatever your dream, or if you haven't found it yet, to go for it. I mean, if it happened for me, it can absolutely happen. And my goal in doing this workshop is to share everything. I mean, part of this for me is being able to share what I wish I knew back then to help you on your own path, whatever it may be, whether it's to have, so that's why I'm here. So, okay. So reinvention doesn't have to be this thing like what I did, where I just flopped my whole life around and went in this way, this direction that I'd always wanted to do. It can be, I think for me, it happened at midlife, but there's this point where you love everything, all these things about your life, but you also want X, Y, and Z. It can just be these add-ons that you want, these things that will enhance your life. So don't think that and I even get nervous because sometimes I'll do a workshop like this, and right afterwards I'll hear from someone who says, so Claire, thank you. I was so inspired. I walked into work Monday and gave my notice. I'm just going to go for it. No, I didn't do that at all. I was super careful. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but don't do it because you think I did. I kept my day job. I went really slowly. I was exhausted, but I kept teaching. I kept working. This didn't become a full-time thing for me until I had a 2-book deal that I knew could support me for a while to keep going. And I'm glad now, and this is all hindsight 2020, because these are the things that I didn't even realize then. But in some ways, writing my first book the way I did while I was so busy was actually an advantage, because I shouldn't have been doing it at all. I should have been grocery shopping or doing some laundry or doing something else for work or something. Anything. So this was my sneaky little thing that I was doing. I was making time where there was no time to write this book. And I hear from people all the time who say, oh, when I take my sabbatical, when I retire, when I do this, I'm going to do that. And that works for some people. It absolutely does. But it can also create this thing where suddenly you have all the time in the world and you're looking at this big blank screen or whatever your version of it, given your dream. And it's like, wow, you know, I have to fill this. I have to write not just one sentence, but page after page, chapter after chapter. It's a lot. So to this day, and my next book will be my 24th. I can't think about the whole book. I'll choke, I'll panic. I just have to take it today's pages step by step. And we'll get into all the details of that. So think about that. You don't have to jump in with both feet. And if you do, please do not blame it on me. You can take your time. Your reinvention can be big or it can be medium or small, whatever size you want. It's your reinvention. You can do anything. You can do it any way you want to. It's your dream. Also, and I think this is important, your dream can support your life the way that mine does. I am so grateful that I've been able to support myself as an author for over 2 decades now, but it doesn't have to. Your life can support your dream. And I think for some people that works great. I mean, if you have a job that's giving you a salary and benefits, I mean, I paid my own health insurance for years. And you also maybe have some downtime on the job and no one looking over your shoulder. I know plenty of people who've written books and created video games and done all sorts of fun side hustles on their day job. I'm not, don't say that I said you could do that, but maybe you can just even do it on lunch or before and after work. And in a way that can take a whole bunch of pressure off. And maybe one leads to the other, which it did for me. So in the beginning, my day job supported my dream, and then now my dream supports my life. So it can just be a whole dance, and you get there when you get there. Okay, so let's get into it. I am going to go back to sharing my screen. And here we go. Let me get this out of the way so you don't have to look at my Zoom thing and get her out of the way. There we go. Okay. Here's a question for you. And in case you're on your phone, I'm going to read it. What one burning question do you hope I'll answer today? And hopefully I'm going to answer it I'll get there on my own, but I might not. So remember, we're not using chat this morning. We're using Q&A. So if a question pops into your head, again, I want you to go into Q&A and just type it in there for me. Carolyn's going to be pulling up some questions for us as we move along if we can get to them. But if I don't get to yours, it's not intentional. Some of this is just going to end up being random, but I will read them all later. I will use them to, I'll find a way to answer them probably through my newsletter and get the answers back to you. And we'll continue the conversation that way. We can do it on social media too, and all of that. So, okay. So what one burning question do you hope I'll answer today? Drop it into the Q&A. I see those numbers going up, so good for you. And there are no stupid questions. It doesn't even have to be burning. It could be a curiosity question. So whatever you come up with, no judgment, just what do you hope I'll answer? What got you out of bed? And although it's not that, I've been up for hours, I'm sure lots of you have too. But depending on your time zone, there are actually people here from all over the world, which is very cool. Okay, now I ask this question all the time at workshops. I've asked it on social media. I've asked it in person many times. And oops, where did that go? Okay, and so we'll see what we get back, and I'll continue the content. Okay, all right. Now I'm going to ask a question here. As I have talked to people with wanting to follow their dreams, reinvent their lives, I've found that they fall into 2 groups, like you can almost split them right down the middle. And the first one is buried dream. People like me deep down inside, you already know what you want. So it's about finding the courage to dig up that dream and dust it off. It's not too late. Dreams don't have an expiration date, not even a best by date, I don't think. If it's still your dream, it's still your dream. You might have to tweak it here and there, and we'll talk about all that as we go. Okay. And the other group, if you're not seeing yourself there, the other group are the people who don't yet know what they want to be when they grow up, at 30, at 50, at 70, at any age. And we'll talk about this too. You just keep trying stuff and figuring it out. It's process of elimination, and it can be a really fun thing to do that. So that's the way to look at it. We'll try stuff, and I'll give you some ideas for doing that as we move forward. But the big one, and I think this can work for both groups, but particularly for this second group, what do I want to be when I grow up, if I choose to grow up? Okay, so think about this. What was that thing you used to love to do before life got in the way? Often, if you can think, life got in the way, bills and family and jobs and all of that. Often, if you can, or negativity and judgment and, am I good enough and all of that stuff. So what was that thing you used to love to do before you started overthinking of it? Sometimes that might not still be your thing, but if you can get yourself back to that, it might help you start there and then take it from there. What's the now version of that thing, or what might fulfill those same needs, or the same thing that drove me there to begin with? Okay. Wherever we fall, whichever category we fall into, I believe we all have that sweet spot, the place where our talents, our passion, what we want to bring to the world, and what the world needs intersect. And it's just something to factor in. So think of it as the reinvention intersection. Your skills, your wants, what you want to bring to the world, and what the world's needs. And if you can pull all those together, that's really special. Now, you don't have to. You might just say, I don't care what the world needs. I'm doing this for me. That's absolutely fine. Or you might say, I have no skill set here at all, but I'm going to learn to play the ukulele anyway. Good for you. I mean, that's okay too. But I do think it becomes really powerful when you can put all of those things together. So I'm going to go back to you so I can feel like we're connecting a little more. There we are. Okay. So I did not know any of that. I did not do any of that intentionally. This is, again, all 2020 hindsight, my mistakes, hopefully being to your benefit. I accidentally hit that sweet spot with my books. I didn't even know enough to try. But when I wrote my first book and have continued to write books, I was writing the books I wanted to read. I was sharing what I had to share with the world, but also writing a book that I would want to read. And it turned out there's this big underserved audience, there still is, of 40 to forever women who don't have enough things that are about them, who sometimes don't get the attention that we deserve. And I was writing to those women. Not that I don't have younger readers, not that I don't have male readers, not that I don't, that they're all 40 to forever women, but these are the people that, lift me up and give me the gift of my career. And I'm so grateful to them. So I just hit that reinvention thing. There was a market, there were people, looking to read my books, and I was authentically doing it, and I was doing it for me and them. And that's the sweet spot. So if you're wanting that kind of a sweet spot and you haven't really thought about it, this is the way that I think of it. If you can take a step back and connect to something bigger than yourself, and that's very much, authentically who you are, what you're passionate about, even how you give back. I think that sharing and generosity are incredibly powerful. So to me, instead, your personal brand, your story, as it ties into what you want to bring to the world, is the most powerful thing you can have, and can become your superpower if you stumble into it the way I did, or if you're more intentional about it. find that place, double down on it. And I believe that's the theme of your reinvention. It's certainly the theme of the overarching theme of my life and my books. I write to give 40 to forever women hope that it's never too late to shine on, that their lives matter. So just think about that. Yours could be completely different. It could, and you don't have to do any of this, but I think it's very powerful. And it's a huge part. You know, you're hitting your milestones and you're trying to do this and trying to do that. But there's some part in the journey that I think you start to say, okay, what does this mean? Why am I doing this? What am I trying to bring to this crazy world we find ourselves in? So that's what works for me. Again, if it resonates for you, it does. And if it does, you can find your version of it. And if you say, no, I don't want to do that, I just want to go get rich, then go, good luck. It's fine too. So it's, again, your dream, your reinvention. Do it any way you want to. Okay, I am going back to this and we're going to move to the next slide. Okay, here's another question for you. Where do you want to be in 5 years? This is a question I ask all the time. I've asked it on social media and workshops, and I'm just endlessly fascinated by the answers and the similarities and the differences. And so think about that. This is a choice, but feel free, go into the Q&A and just drop it in. You can just write 5- or 5 years, or you can just write it and I'll figure it out when I look at it. So where do you want to be in 5 years? Close your eyes and picture it and then drop it into the Q&A. Love seeing those numbers go up. And try to make it one word if you can. If you have to go a little longer, just one quick word. First one that pops in your head. No grades, no judgment, no nothing. Just whatever pops into your head. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Okay, I'm going to give you, this might help. I love word cloud. So I made a word cloud with some of the answers that I get all the time. And I love this. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Interesting. And to that, I would add interested, because I think they kind of come together. I love remote. That's a new one. Everybody wants to be remote. Rich always comes up. The beach. And maybe because my books, the beach is almost a minor character in my books, people say, well, you know, easy for you. You get to walk the beach every day. Well, yeah, that was part of my dream. I made it happen. And, you know, there are ways to figure it out. There are so many cool remote jobs you can get. So you can be remote and on the beach. I'm going to read some of these real quick in case you can't see them on the cloud, because some of the fonts, the type is really small. Interesting, artist, painting, beach, rich, remote, published, divorced, healthy, happy, home, away, employed, retired, wealthy, beach, author, owner, writer, retired, consultant, best-selling, freedom, independent, skilled, inspiration, leader, focused, content, fit, traveling, thin, reading, vacation, balanced, grateful, debt-free, coding, drawing, laughing. So there's a mix, huh? And look at those numbers going up as everybody's typing them in. Go, go, go. So, you know, again, where do you want to be in 5 years? This is where, pick one. It can be anything. I mean, it could be a place. I never used to really think about that because for me, it was so much about writing a book. It could be just a complete pivot job-wise, and it could be an emotion. It could be what you want to feel. It could be a new skill. It can be whatever you want it to be. So next question. Oh, I see people with questions. Carolyn, can you see if there's something that I should take a minute and answer?
Well, one of the biggest questions that we're getting in the Q&A is, let me go to the top, that I was excited to see.
Oh, thanks.
First of all, they want to know about, will a copy of the recording be sent out?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to mention that in a little while. Yes, I will talk about that as we go further along, but don't worry, you will be able to have access to all of this. So if you want to take more careful notes later or go through it one more time, at the end of the workshop, I will tell you how that's going to work. And yes, you will hear more. So yeah, don't worry about that. I just didn't want to say it too soon because it's so much fun to have you here live too. So, okay. Yeah.
The next question would be, how do you overcome the fear to leap?
The fear to
Leap.
Oh, the fear to leap. Okay, we are going to talk about fear in a minute. So can I put a pin in that? And that's going to come up on my notes in just a couple of slides. So perfect question. Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot of the ones that I'm getting the most of.
Okay, perfect. And we'll ask more. I'll take another break. So
okay,
in a minute,
perfect.
Questions. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Thank you.
You are a rock star. You're living up to your reputation. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. Because just for everyone to know, it is for me to go from camera to slide. I'm used to being like at my computer writing books or speaking in person. So Carolyn is being awesome. And so are all of you. Thank you for putting all these comments and questions in. Okay, I'm going to the next slide. Here's the second question. What's getting in your way? And by the question that was just asked about fear, that may be the thing. And this is what we're going to talk about soon. So think about it. Close your eyes, thinking about it. What's getting in your way? Drop it into the Q&A, type it right in. One word, two. With what I love that some people do is to try to keep it short. They'll hyphenate it, which I think is fun. Okay, and here's the next word cloud. What's getting in your way? And do I love how this great big me came up? Because for me, that was the thing. I was the one getting in my own way. But let me read these real quick. Me, time, self-doubt, shiny object. And again, these little dashes. I'm sort of a rule bender myself. So when I had originally said one word, and I loved how many people just snuck in that second word. So good for you. Very creative. Okay. Me, time, self-doubt, shiny object, perfectionism, fear, insecurity, kids, husband, parents, commitments, cost, finances, money, self-doubt, time, job, scattered, distracted, doubt, perfectionism, uncommitted, goal setting, expectations, comparison, inner voice. That says it, huh? I think I've felt them all. So if you want to reinforce any of these, and you can just type them in again, you don't have to be original. If you came up with something that no one else has mentioned, drop it right into the Q&A. And again, I'll go back to these. I'll find a way to share them with you as more content. I'll add them to future word clouds because I just find they just give such an interesting picture. And it helps me understand what I'm struggling with. Sometimes I don't even see it until I see, oh yeah, that's me. That's me too. I've got them all. It's like reading symptoms, it's like, oh yeah, I feel that. When you think you're, the whole hypochondria thing. Okay. So I am going to feel free to just keep going in that Q&A if you need to. I'm going to come back to you here. Okay. Hi. All right. So, and now we're going to get to that question as others. All right. In terms of what's getting in your way, essentially, these are our excuses. And I don't mean that they're not valid. They're absolutely valid. There are a million valid excuses out there. I had them all, and I used them all. But one thing that I have learned is that for me, when I got to that place, that the not doing it was more painful than actually going after my dream. Those excuses were still there, but I was able to find a way anyway. I was able to move past those excuses. So I truly, truly believe there is always a way, not necessarily an easy way, but there's always a way if you want something enough. And I think that is something to hold on to. That is the good news. Fear is the biggest one. And thank you for the questions on that. I feel that there's fear of failure and fear of success. And sometimes there are flip sides of the same coin. And I still feel them. I have been over my head and somehow in fear for a couple of decades now. People ask, how did you handle this big thing? Or how did you handle that? You just do it. You just find a way and do it anyway. So what I have learned to do, I used to try to bury that fear because clearly I'm a barrier. I just like, oh yeah, I'm fine. But now I try to feel that fear. I just let it in. It's just like, okay, ouch, this is really scary. I felt some of that about this because I knew how many people were going to be here and I just want to do a good job for you. And so I feel the fear, but then I push past it and do it anyway. And sometimes I can take that fear, which is adrenaline, that burst of adrenaline we feel, the shakes, the stomach hurting, and use that as fuel and use that to just go, yes, I'm doing it anyway. The other thing is, and this for me happened at midlife, again, these things can come at any age. I don't want to diminish anyone if you're seeing these things earlier than I did. But for me, some of the fear is the fear of other people judging me and what I do in my choices and not measuring up to them. Well, by the time I finally wrote my first book, I had already embarrassed myself in just about every way imaginable. So, hey, if this didn't work, oh, well, what else is new? I just did something that didn't work. So getting to that point, like my life wasn't going to end if it said that my book never got published. I had the guts to write a book anyway. You're a different person by the time you complete that many pages. It's still worth it. Growth. Is it better when it works and it's successful? Oh, yeah. I mean, is it better when you get to walk a red carpet and you get to hit a bestseller list? Absolutely. But even when it doesn't, you have the guts to do that. You push past that fear. So that's my biggest advice about fear, and just knowing it's really that judgment thing, like let go. You're doing this for you. And if you're choosing a dream for how it's going to look to the rest of the world or how it's going to look on Instagram, I got to tell you, there's a point where that just becomes part of that whole fear of missing out thing and trying to compare your edited, Photoshop life to everyone else's. Just don't even go there. Go for that pure, what's it going to do for you and what can it bring to the world? How can you encourage other people with their dreams? So that's what I say about fear. Feel it and do it anyway. And in terms of feeling fear of success, it was for me just that same judgment. And that authenticity is what saves me with the fear of success. I am not trying to give anyone else's workshop. I'm just doing me. I'm giving you the best I have with what I have to work with right now. And that's the best any of us can do. So that's what I say about fear. Just, we got to do it anyway. Otherwise, bummer, you're going to miss the whole thing. Okay. Procrastination, that's another big one that I hear all the time, and I fight every day. So what I've come to think about with procrastination, excuse me, I have this crazy curl sticking out. I apologize for doing that. What I feel about procrastination is that sometimes for me, it's usually I'm trying to avoid the discomfort of doing something difficult. And so I procrastinate. I don't procrastinate on the easy stuff. It's like the difficult things. And I feel that constantly with every book, even with my newsletters. With my newsletters, I'm trying to provide content that's going to be useful for the people who get it, that isn't going to feel like spam landing in their inbox. One more thing they just don't need in their lives. I'm trying to provide real value, laughter, tips for people's lives. I'm trying to make it visually appealing so that it just feels comforting when you say, oh, Claire's in my inbox and, this feels good. That's what I'm going for. But it's hard. Sometimes I'll sit there and I'll be, I can't believe I can write all these books and I can't think of anything to say. Maybe I have nothing to say anymore. Maybe I have nothing left to give the world. And I second guess myself and I do all of that. But then if I remind myself that it's just, I don't want to go through the discomfort. I don't even do jigsaw puzzles, but to me, the whole thing is like a jigsaw puzzle. You get your ideas out on paper. It's like you put that clay on the table and then you start massaging it or tweaking it until it makes sense. And it's work. Good things take work. Following our dreams isn't easy. If it was, everyone would just do it and it would be meaningless because everyone would have the same level of successfully following their dreams. So if I accept that it's going to be difficult, and another thing with procrastination for me is I do the hardest thing first, and then I get to go, which is usually for me, my daily pages. And then I get to go around through the rest of my life, the rest of my day. So if you do that first thing first, we're going to get a plan soon, and you do that first, get it out of the way. Otherwise, it stays with you like this weight on your shoulders all day long. So if you can do it first, sometimes your life won't allow you to. You might have to only do it after you finish everything else in your day. I always think it's worth getting up a little earlier so you don't have to do that. But sometimes you can, or sometimes you have to do it as a once a month binge or something. So it is what it is. But if you have the choice, get that thing you're procrastinating on done first. You'll breathe a big sigh of relief because it's only a little chunk of it you have to do that day. And then you'll move on to the rest of your day. Another thing that I think comes up in terms of what's getting in our way, handling rejection. Ouch, 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 ouch. Rejection is horrible. I hate it. We all hate it. And sometimes I think we don't go after our dreams because we don't finish. We start a project, but we don't finish it. Because if we finish it and put it out into the world, we're going to have to hear what the world has to say about it. And that is really can feel like it is a big deal. It feels like a big deal. I am so grateful to have so many wonderful readers who read my books and say kind things about them. But I'll tell you, if somebody doesn't get it and says something mean, ouch, it really hurts. Or if I go for something and I don't know what it would be, an event or a TV deal or something, and it doesn't happen, that rejection stings. But if you don't put yourself out there, you're never going to know. And these long shots like I've had, they happen every day. You've got to believe in them yourself. You've got to go for it. And you'll find a way to handle the rejection. What I do is I have to admit that I do this. I let myself get really pathetic about it. I wallow in it. I whine. I'm just like completely miserable. Oh, poor me. I can't believe this happened. I'll never survive this. Oh my God, my life is over, blah, blah, blah. And then 24 hours in, I shut myself off. That's it. I'm done. And it's a conscious choice. And then I say, okay, what else can I do? Where's my pivot? Where's my next step? And then, and this is a big one, it took me a long time to figure this out. Instead of being, I hate them, they're wrong, they're this, there's almost always, sometimes people are just jerks, but almost always there's this little grain of truth in there. If someone didn't get something, maybe I haven't really done my work yet. There's more that I can do, not to change who I am and what I bring to the world, but just to tweak it a little bit. Or maybe there isn't, but I at least try to take a lesson and then I shrug it off and say, what's next? But again, I have to remind myself, but I find if I don't bury it first, again, we're hearing this theme again. If I acknowledge it to myself, if I let myself feel the pain and feel the sting and the ouchiness of it all, and then stop and move forward. And then one more that I really think is important is perfectionism, overcoming perfectionism. And these are all, I'm sure somebody could do this great graphic of them all being intertwined. But so perfectionism, if we want to do something, special, something good, if it's important to us, it's really hard not to stub our toe on perfectionism. I have to tell you that I would easily be working on my first book instead of, thinking about, am I really going to jump into my 24th? If I let my perfectionism have free reign, because I would not only my first book, I'd be on the first chapter or the first paragraph or the first sentence stuck because, oh, can I make it better? Can I make it better? Is it good enough? Oh, what if nobody likes it? Blah, blah. You can do that to yourself. So there's a point. I work as hard as I can. With every book, I try to raise the bar so that I get better with each book in terms of my craft, but in terms of my humanity, in terms of my heart. I try to raise the bar with each book. I do the best I can, and then I let it go. I mean, I work with what I have to work with now, today. This is as good as I can possibly make it this time around, and I'll get better. But I'm not going to get better if I don't get it out into the world, take the next step. If I freeze, if I stay, locked in place here. I know of people who have had books in a drawer for, decades. I know of people who have real talent or have a real need to live a different life. And they're just frozen by perfectionism. So that's something to just think about. It's like, I don't look back. I do know some people who look back at their previous work or look at their old videos and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was doing that. I do this all the time. I'm looking at myself instead of the camera, and, all the things we do, the little, quirky things or the ums and the ahs that I'm doing right now. Let it go. Do the best you can. Think about what you are trying to bring to the world. And then, it's a journey. You'll keep getting better. So don't let perfectionism, and some of that too comes from worrying about what other people are going to think and how they're going to judge you and all of that. So those, I hope those help a little bit. So I'm going to go back to sharing with you and move past that cloud. Okay. We are going to talk about SMART goals. This is certainly not an original concept to me. This has been around since probably the mid 80s, and it's used in everything from business and, the corporate world to life coaching and health coaching. And it's not exactly what I do, but you can fit what I do into this. And I think it's, you can change the acronym to work better for you, or what the acronym stands for, or whatever, to make it work better for you. But I think it's a good way to kind of wrangle the goals that will lead you to your dream and make it more handleable and allow you to take it kind of step by step. But as we get into this, I want to talk about another thing. You probably saw them behind me, as when you could see me, that pile of notebooks I have. If you don't use notebooks already, I would really suggest, I just use composition notebooks because I have a hard time writing in the fancy ones. I don't want to mess them up. So if you have a notebook, it can help you with this also. I also use actually a paper calendar. So I'll tell you how I do it, but think about that. So what I use my notebook for, I kind of let it take on a life of its own. So sometimes, like if I were starting one after this workshop, I might start the first page as my SMART goals, and I would outline the first step of my project, and I would fit them all into this. And then I would take it from there. And maybe it would be almost a diary of my journey. Maybe it would I'd start peppering in little things that I find that I don't want to lose. And could you do it? I have tons of files online. I do it that way too. I have notes on my phone, but I find having a paper recording, a paper record of it all is very helpful. That pile of notebooks, I have many piles in my office, but anytime I'm really stuck, whether it's on a book or just on what I want to say, I will grab a notebook randomly, sit down on my office floor and just start flipping through it. And invariably, it will lead me to something just pops out that was like, oh, yeah, I could do this and then I could do that. So it's just a really good resource to create, and it becomes a record of your journey, which is kind of fun too. So I do let it take on a life of its own. Sometimes I start one at the beginning of a year. So almost always when I start a new book, I start a new notebook. Sometimes I'll do a quote notebook where for a while I'm just quotes that I love quotes and quotes that speak to me for whatever reason. I'll write them down so I don't lose them. And again, I do this on my computer too, but it's just fun to have it as a journal. Sometimes it'll be turn into a gratitude journal for a while. And oh my gosh, I'm so grateful I survived today's pages, or, I got through this, this without this happening or whatever. And then sometimes it's super specific, like today I did this, this, and this. So anyway, there's the notebook. So SMART goals, let me tell you real quickly what I do. And I've been doing this consistently through 23 books. I write 2 pages a day, 7 days a week when I'm writing a book. And you could say, oh my gosh, I can write 20 pages in like 1 hour. Well, good for you. And that's wonderful if you can. But for me, I would write 20 pages and then I would hobble along for a month. And then I'd maybe binge write the next month or the month after. 2 pages a day, I can do consistently over time. I can, it's like when I'm doing that, I'm living in the book, living in the project. And so I'm thinking about it while I'm on the elliptical, while I'm out taking a walk, while I'm taking a shower, while I'm cooking or ordering takeout or, whatever. It's in my head all the time. So it takes a lot of the pressure off because I'm inching this book forward. I start each day going over only the pages from the day before, because I'm not going back to the beginning, because my perfectionism will kick in and I'll be like, oh, this isn't good enough. This is a stupid idea. I'm just inching it forward, because you can't make anything better if you don't have anything to work with. You've got to get through that first draft, or your version of the first draft first, and then take it from there. Also, for me, and this is individual, doing something 7 days a week is easier for me than 5 days a week. It's like if I'm going to walk Monday through Friday, and then I take Saturday and Sunday off. I'm doing my 10,000 steps a day. Then I take Saturday and Sunday off. Monday's a bear. It's really hard to get back in the groove for me. So 2 pages a day isn't so much that I can't have the rest of my life. I can fit it in no matter what crisis is going on. I can find a way. And that consistency over time has given me 23 books in 23 years, So I record it on, and this is kind of dorky, on a paper calendar, because I need to be able to see it as opposed to the calendar on my phone. So I would know, say today, I am writing pages 131 and 132 or whatever. So that's very specific. It's measurable. We're going back to the SMART goals here, because I know it's measurable on a daily basis, but also on a project basis, because I know my books run somewhere between 250 and 300 pages. It is time bound in that way. I'll be done with this goal when I reach the end of my draft. It's achievable. In the beginning, I wasn't sure, but now I've written enough books that I can say, oh, I mean, it never gets easier. If you think it gets easier to keep creating it, I think in some ways, you just never know if you can do it again. I feel that with every single book. Can I pull this off again? And if I hang in there, I can, but I have many doubts along the way. But what happens after you start to get a track record, I know that because I lived through my first 23 books, it's going to be hard, but I'm probably going to live through my 24th. So that helps. But in the beginning, you can scale it down a little bit to make it feel more achievable. It's relevant because this project that you're picking, this dream that you're picking for you. And maybe you're picking for you for many reasons that include what you're going to bring to the world, but you're not picking it for how it looks on social media, or for how how cool it's going to make you look to the people in your world. It's relevant to you. I think that's really important. And it's time bound, because it's so easy. Someday tends to not get us anywhere. So you got to give yourself a deadline. I'm lucky. I mean, you're lucky when it's kind of imposed by the outside world that you signed a contract and you have to deliver. But even when you don't, and that's where my 2 pages a day helps too, it is time bound. I can do the math and figure out what day I need to be finished. So that is just super, super helpful to me. So that I'm going to come back to because that was a long time on that slide. So think about your version of that. You can make up your own fun acronym. You can use that one. There are millions of graphics online if you want a different one to put in there. But think about that and think about the notebook. So in all of this, I think I think of it as creating a lifeboat. And I feel that one of the biggest gifts of my career is that I'm now surrounded by all these incredible like-minded people. We just, connect on this reinvention and dream building and supporting each other level. And that becomes a lifeboat, not just me for them, but this group that lifts me up too. So you can think about that as being a platform that, and again, this sounds all marketing and branding and all of that. I don't think about it that way at all. I think about this as my life. It is a lifeboat. Who do I want to meet? And I think about that all the time when I run into people in person or on social media, and I can't even remember who's who anymore. Have I actually met this person? But you just start connecting. You put yourself out there a little bit, and you, I do this on social media. People follow celebrities or this and that. I just follow people who look interesting. And when people follow me, I follow them back because I'm supporting them creating their lifeboat too. So that's how I think about it. And I think it's got to be genuine connection. You take a class, always try to have a genuine connection with one or two people. Same with online, or if you come to, you join a group, a Facebook group or whatever, or, wherever you go, you don't have, it's like those golden nuggets. You don't need a lot. Connect with one or two people and have it be real. And then eventually, brick by brick, the right people connect with you in person and online. You add value to their lives. They add value to yours. You stay connected, brick by brick, person by person. You're building your lifeboat, your platform. I think of it as kind of your dream boat. And that's kind of how you do it. And I have a little thing. This might be, I want to share this one with you too, because you might not be there yet. This could be sort of long-term goal. But again, I did not do this intentionally, but it has ended up being a really important thing in my sort of being able to have this wonderful life I almost didn't have. There's a business concept here. It's called inbound marketing. And I, again, don't think of it. I think of it as building a lifeboat, but that's where it comes from. So in this day and age, I would argue that your hub, this is your home, this website where I'm saying that's your home base. If people want to hang out with you on your lifeboat, that's your lifeboat. That's where people know, no matter what's happening in this crazy world, they can find you. Because I know people who say, oh, no, that's social media. That's completely on social media. Find me. I'm on TikTok or Twitter or Instagram, wherever. Think about this. Okay, I built, I think I have over 21,000 followers on Twitter. And now Twitter's changing pretty dramatically. And as we're speaking now, we don't know where it's going. We don't know if, where Elon Musk is going to take it. So what about if those people who were connected to me on Twitter and aren't connected to me anywhere else have bailed? Think about what happened with MySpace, all those musicians who built their careers on MySpace, and then MySpace went away. Some of them pivoted fast and they were okay. Others lost entire careers. I mean, it's crazy if you think about it. So social media is a great way to connect. But then if those people find you, need to have another place where you can stay connected with them. The same with someone who finds one of your paintings or meets you at work, but then they leave their job or whatever, or someone you meet in person. If I meet people in person and we have a real click and I happen to remember to have them with me, I'll give them a bookmark that has my website on it, along with like pictures of my books or whatever. I'm always directing people, random connections. I have met more cool people like riding an elevator, and we're still connected all these years later because my website is my home, is my hub, is the tool that I have so they can find me. But you don't bring people there. And I would argue, even if your dream is to have a build, like something that's a physical presence, is a building, an art gallery or a restaurant or whatever. What if your lease is up and you move somewhere else? Are you going to lose all those people who go to find you and have nowhere other way to reach them? So the way that I look at it is that if people come to all of my other places, my ultimate goal is for them to find me at clairecook.com, because when they're there, I'll make it easy for them. I offer this free download of quotes with little coloring things, just things that would interest people who are all about following their dreams and reinvention, again, that overarching theme. And then I give value. I send out a newsletter that hopefully adds more value to their life. So we stay connected. And the people for whom it doesn't resonate, it's not their thing, they wouldn't stay. That's okay. I mean, we all need it. These are about authentic, genuine connections. So anyway, what that has done, brick by brick, and I'm talking since 2000, when I started collecting, started a newsletter for people who came to my physical book events with my first book. A lot of them 23 years later are still on my newsletter list. And if I don't send one out for a while, I'll get emails saying, are you okay? We haven't heard from you in a while. So if you can do that, that is just such value that it's just something important to think about. So whatever your dream is, think about how you're ultimately going to have a hub and a way to stay connected to the like-minded people. And then you'll all be on this really cool lifeboat together, and we can encourage and help each other. So that's how I like to look at it. All right, I'm going to come back to you here. Okay, how about questions? Carolyn, do we have any? Is anything popping up?
A lot of it you're covering a lot with the
presentation. Good.
So you're covering a lot of it about fear and about how to move forward. So you're doing well.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm hoping that I can get to as many of these as possible. And I've heard quite a few of them again. So, but feel free, keep putting the questions in the Q&A, everybody, because these are the things. And, we like to think, and I think this is a thing that we can do, all of us, one and done. I mean, that was a huge shocker for me. I thought, oh, once I hit this list, or once I have a bestseller, or once I write one book, I'm going to live happily ever after. And, we all start to think after this. Well, the reality is you never get to that place. It is such a roller coaster. Life is a roller coaster. So one good thing happens, and then the next day, something flies in your face that reminds you, ooh, guess I'm not there yet, or I'm not that special, or this bad thing can still happen. So you just have to do what you're doing it because you love it, because you want to learn and grow. A lot of the growth, and I hate to say this because it's not like I'm inviting bad things to happen by any means, but that's where a lot of the growth happens. I mean, even the things like there would be no novels or television series or movies. I always say, happy lives, boring, happy lives, where not that much happens. They're fabulous to live, but they're really boring to read about, So if there's no conflict, if there's no drama, then, nobody would read. So, and that tends to be true with our dreams too. We think, oh yeah, this will be smooth sailing as soon as this happens, but it never is. So just know these are the things you have to keep coming back to again and again. Fear doesn't go away. Perfectionism doesn't go away. You have a toolbox, maybe a bigger toolbox to deal with it. So, and then I think there's a point that you keep tweaking your dream. I have pivoted. I mean, mine has changed so much. The publishing world has kind of imploded and then changed. And so my journey has changed with that. There was a point that I was speaking, doing keynotes at great big conferences. And there were some years that a lot of my energy and a big chunk of my income was coming from that. And then those all went away, mostly with COVID. And now, then, suddenly it was like I had the movie, I got all these other things optioned and they never happened. But now I have interest in television series for 2 of my series, which may or may not happen. So my point is simply that you just go with it. You go with the flow. That's another thing that I haven't said yet. And you just, something happens, you deal with it, you feel the ouch or you feel the fear, and you rise above it, and then you take the next step and you go with that. And that's how you do it, 1 foot in front of the other, brick by brick. But just know, I mean, I don't want to bum you out to say it's never going to get easy, but if something just becomes super easy, you usually get bored and want to go on to something else anyway. I mean, for me, this writing gig has been just one challenge after another. And I'll talk about it in a minute, but I often think, oh, am I going to discover something through my characters that I write about? Oh, maybe I want to do this instead of being an author. But it always, for me, the biggest growth is in writing the next book and in connecting with people like you through things like this. So I'm going to go back then.
While you're moving like that,
sure.
I see a couple of questions about
Good.
energy.
About what? I'm sorry, Caroline?
Energy, like
energy?
how you keep the energy up. How to defeat laziness.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So keeping the energy up for me and actually defeating laziness. I kind of think they're both the same. One thing I have to say, and I'm speaking, this is maybe more of a personal thing. There was a point in my life I started seeing, I could start buying into the getting older thing, or I could completely rebel against the whole concept, which I have, and rise above the ageism and all of that stuff, and just get super healthy and fit and just keep going and going and going. I mean, you see, there's a place where people are kind of jumping off that curve and other people just keep doing it. So I walk daily. I eat really well. I take care of myself. I get a ton of sleep. And I do what I love. I spend my day doing what I love, and that keeps my energy up. But I focus on it. I give it priority. I sometimes after I finish my pages for the day, I've got nothing. I've got nothing left, and that's it. But I gave the most important thing that, when my kids were young, that was a whole different thing. Now I'm lucky that I can do that. So you just prioritize it. That helps. As for laziness, I think there are 2 things. One is it ties into that energy thing. It ties into, I remind myself how lucky I am to be doing this. But I think it's those having a plan and those SMART goals. I'll tell you, there are days I don't feel like writing my pages at all. If there was a way I could wiggle out of it, but I have painted myself into a corner. There's no way I can avoid doing those 2 pages a day because I've committed to them. They're totally doable, as lazy as I am. Some days it just flies. It feels so good. It's like, oh, wow, I did it. Other days it's like, oh my gosh, I survived that. Every day isn't going to be fabulous. It just isn't. Big things don't happen that way. So if you're waiting for that, in writing, it's for that muse to land on your shoulder, or if you're waiting for inspiration to strike, you get some days like that. No matter what you're doing, you get some lucky days. I mean, don't you get them in the rest of your life? Sometimes I'm walking the beach as the sun is coming up and I'm like, wow, you get that chill. But most days I'm waiting for my caffeine to kick in, dragging my weary butt across the sand. It just doesn't happen every day. So you can feel the laziness, be a little low energy, and do it anyway. that's another kind of pain you're feeling, and you're doing it anyway. So just don't expect every day to be perfect, but it's the consistency. I think this is true about exercise. I think it's true about following your dreams. I think it's consistency over time. They're the people who just boom, they, and this is that shiny object thing. You're all psyched up. You're ready to go. You have these big ideas. You spend 1 or 2 days doing it, and then you just like take a nap and and you're just not into it. I feel you. I get that impulse, but I have structured it so I can't wiggle out. And that's what I encourage you to do with the SMART goals. Commit. It may be that you're committing for 30 days, or you're committing until you have a rudimentary knowledge of this new thing, or you sign up for this certificate or this class, or you pick a goal, finish that goal. Because this is what I think, when you quit midway, when you start a SMART goal and you quit midway, it doesn't feel good. It feels like failure. I think finish that first goal and then reassess. And then if you say, oh, dead end, because that's how, if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up yet, that if you're in that camp, that's how you start like jumping and project jumping and this and that. I talk to people all the time. They'll come up to me after I speak and they'll say, oh, I have a script done, 2 novels, I'm taking a ceramics class, and I'm halfway through a play. Pick one, just pick one. It doesn't have to be the one for the rest of your life. Pick one, take it as far as you can get it. And at one point, if it feels like that's as far as I know how to get it at this point, then you can jump to something else and try. But I always think of the people, and we hear these stories, if they'd just given it one more try, one more week, one more, class or book or whatever, that they could have been doing what I'm doing, or not that I think that I'm so special, or what someone else did. So quitting too soon is a really big thing. But are you going to feel it every day? Absolutely not. You know what I do? This is a thing I'm going to admit to. Every time I say yes to something, including this, I'm so happy to be here. I love doing this. I love working with Emory. Every time, what is happening? It looks like something fell out, but I'm going to stay right here, and hopefully you're here. Yeah, you're all here. I think we just lost Carolyn for a minute. Okay, I'm going to keep talking. But every time I say yes to something that I really want to do, but is a little bit new or a little bit different, I always second guess myself. Like the next day, I'll say, why did I say yes to this? Or if it's traveling to speak at a conference, it's like, oh, why did I say yes? But I never wiggle out. I've learned that that's just what I do. It's this weird little protective thing that I have. So know that if you're picking a reinvention theme right now and you're planning to jump to something else, just know that's a very normal thing to feel. You might very easily start saying to yourself, this is just, I'm not sure I want to do this anymore, but give yourself, that's why it should be time bound, or a really specific, measurable thing. No matter how I feel, no matter how lazy I feel, no matter what my energy level is, or how fearful I am, or how I want to procrastinate, or how much my perfectionism is kicking in, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and I'm going to do it for X long, and that's what it is. But have it written in your notebook, commit to it. And so I think that's super, super helpful. Okay, I am going to now, because I don't want to miss, there we go. Okay. There are 5, these are my 5 favorite tips. I don't want to forget to say them to you. And before we move on to the next thing, so this is the first one, and it's going to dance in. Okay, rise above the negativity. Whatever the motive, lots of people will tell you why you can't or shouldn't do whatever it is, whatever that you want to do, whatever your dream is. Oh, there we go. Carolyn's back. Hi, Carolyn. I think we lost you for a minute.
Yes, internet.
You okay?
Yes, I'm good. Internet. So.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad you're back. You just have to decide to do it anyway. And you might want to protect yourself in the beginning too. I didn't tell anyone about my first novel until I'd finished a draft. It just helped me. It just helped me. I didn't have to answer to anyone else. I needed this like private dream space to finish it. And you don't need anyone's permission. Just do it. Everybody has an opinion. Everyone will give you an opinion. It doesn't mean it's an opinion that's going to help you at all. So sometimes you just need to do it. But anyway, every day I think about this, rising above the negativity. There is so much negativity out there, and it just it's there every day. So I actually consciously think about that. Whatever's coming at me, rise above it. If people, I don't throw back when ugly things come at me. I don't, get into it with trolls on the internet. I don't do any of that. I rise above the negativity and I just keep going for that light, Okay. My next one is we've talked about this, be who you really are. The big buzzword these days is branding, but I truly think of it as authenticity. This is the first job I've ever had where I wasn't pretending, or at least trying to pretend to be a slightly different person. Who I am and what I write are totally in sync. There's tremendous power in that. So, and I think it helps with all of this. You're doing this because it's your genuine dream. This is genuinely who you are. The people-pleasing stuff, just let it go. I mean, it took me years. And I think that for me was a huge gift of midlife. And again, it can come at any time. There's this point that happened for me that this is not that, I truly hope all of you like me, but if you don't, oh, well, we just can't all be everything to everybody. And coming to that realization will really help you be who you really are. Go after your dream, not someone else's dream. Okay, here's another one. Confound expectations. If everybody's doing it, it's already been done. Put a little surprise in everything you do. Give it a little tweak. Originality counts, whatever your dream is in life. So an example is, you might not like my books. That's fine. We all have different tastes. It's subjective, but you're probably not going to confuse them with someone else's book, because I've put my own unique spin in terms of the voice, in terms of the kind of books, even the fact that I kind of do this hybrid with putting a lot of tips and stuff in both my fiction and nonfiction. Like I'm always trying to just do my thing. I'm writing, bringing what I can to the world in a way that's uniquely my own. So, but give it a tweak. So if everyone's doing something and you really want to do it too, how can you do your version of it? And sometimes it's taking two kind of disparate things and just like morphing them, mushing them together into a new thing. So think about that. How can you put a little surprise in whatever you want to do? Okay, here's one. Do something nice for someone. And this could sound a little Pollyanna-ish to you, but I believe it with my whole heart. So when you're trying to reinvent, when you're following your dream, it's easy to get needy. It's so easy to get needy. I still feel it sometimes when you're struggling to figure out what's next. But many of the great things that have happened to me were triggered by something nice I did for someone else. People talk. Your actions determine what they say. As one of my characters once said, karma is a boomerang. And I think it's so, so true. So I do this consciously. If I'm having a tough day, I consciously say, I either spend maybe a little extra time answering an email or a comment on social media, or I'm just, at the grocery store saying something nice to the cashier, or meeting someone on my beach walk or whatever. And it just flips the energy. And am I doing it because I think something's going to come back to me directly? No, absolutely not. Sometimes it does. But the biggest thing it does for me is that I get to, even if the other person is mean back to me, I still get to wake up the next day and be a nice person, and that person has to wake up and be who they are. And it's just what I choose to bring to the world. But it has so many of the cool things that have happened to me are just these random coincidences that happen because I did something nice. Like someone in this workshop will know someone who knows someone who's, I don't know, whatever, and that will come back to me and it will make a great story someday. It just happens all the time. So think about that. And if it feels Pollyanna-ish, don't think about that. Okay. Okay, get your tech together. Everything you need to know about the world you want to conquer can be found online. So get your computer skills up to speed fast. Take a class, find a computer mentor, research, create an online presence, start connecting on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. The internet is a great equalizer. There's so many opportunities out there just waiting for you to take advantage of them. And I think that these are the things, I'm coming back to you so you don't have to keep looking at a slide. So in terms of, I do encourage people to get out there for whatever your dream is going to be. The ultimate question is, who is going to be interested in what you're doing or creating? Or if it's all about, I'll use the moving to the beach, how are you going to meet people there? Or who's going to tell you which beach to move to? Or if you want a job working remote, how are you going to find that? So you can do this all online. In terms of social media, if you're just getting started, I always say just pick one and have it be the one that suits your personality. So go to YouTube, start Googling, the different platforms, watch some getting started for beginners videos or whatever, and just get in there and play around. Pick one at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. And this only happens, this kind of connection, after you've done your daily goals for your next step. In terms of your dream and what you're going to do next. So, but really, there's a point, and there's sort of a thing of, for the Gen Zers or even the millennials who are on this call, in this workshop, they're like, oh my gosh, I grew up with this stuff. I just, got it in utero. But for people who it came into later in their lives, who maybe didn't even have this when they were in college, it can be new, and you can become a dinosaur in a hot minute. And you don't have to be. It's not that hard. There is a YouTube video for everything. You can learn anything you want to do. You can build your own website. You can figure out all of it. So a lot of it is just your style. Do you want to read a book to figure out how to do it? Do you want to do a website? Would you rather take a course? You can find a class that will teach you how to do this. So just keep putting yourself out there, because your world starts to close in if you don't. And change is happening so quickly. And the scary kind of thing is, or the thing to embrace, I love change, is that the speed of change we're in right now, right this minute, is the slowest it's ever going to be from now on. I mean, it's just going to keep ramping up. So embrace it, make peace with it, learn fun stuff, but also learn, this is something I've learned, I don't need to know how to do everything. I just need to know the things I need to know to get where I'm going. So I don't have to understand conceptually all of this stuff. I just need to understand, how do I get my website out? How do I connect with my readers? How do I share with the people I think will most benefit from it? So don't let the vast knowledge. I mean, I laugh because the tech people that I know, the tech help people, it's like, how did you figure that out when this thing was crashing and this launch was happening? They Googled it, I mean, nobody knows everything. They just know how to find what they need. So keep that in mind. Don't let it overwhelm you. Okay, I want to talk. Oh, sorry. Yes, go.
The last slide, I have a couple of questions asking for you to put the last slide up. They want to get the points again.
Oh, the last slide. Okay, good. And then I'll go to the next one. Yeah. And again, you will get this. So thank you. I didn't mean to rush. I've lived with these things, and I'm sure they're on my website too, because these are truly my favorite. So take a minute to write them down. And again, as we go into the next slide, you will receive an email probably by Tuesday from Emory, which will give you follow-up information about some other free workshops coming up, which will be great, but also a link so that you can access this video again, the video of this workshop again. So you'll be able to go through and see all of this. So if you missed anything, and you can also find me, and again, I'm sure my 5 favorite reinvention tips is up on my website, which I'm going to actually take you to in a minute. So hopefully you've had time to write that down. Okay. And let's go to this. All right, inspiration. Now, if you know what your dream is, I'm going to take you to these sites because there's a couple things I want to show you. But if you know where you're going, and you're figuring out how to get there, this can help you, but it can also help you if you just need to keep trying some stuff and seeing what resonates for you. So I'm going to pull this up and I am going to take you to my website first. Is that still uploaded? Okay. If you go, and you can pull up a separate screen if you want to do this. I'm just going to show you how to research at my website if you're wanting to get some ideas. So if you go to clairecook.com and then you click on books, click on that link up there, it's going to bring you to this page. And if you scroll down here, Never Too Late, Your Roadmap to Reinvention, you can figure, as you can imagine, is a big chunk of what we've talked about today. And I talk about all of these things in more detail. So if you click through from any of these book covers, you will find excerpts and more information. So you might want to read the whole book. You know, you may or may not. These are my 3 nonfiction books. And again, they just might give you some little pieces, even just reading the excerpts. But you can also link through to find them. Shine On, I wrote after staying with this one very specific thing, trying to get better with each book, writing. I just had my writer's hat on for all this time. And I wanted to kind of branch out from that. How else can I be creative? What things can I try? And for me, a big thing was I developed a certain amount of competency by just sticking to one thing, which does allow you to kind of move further down the road. But I needed to be like, how can I try some things I'm going to be really bad at? And I did. And it was fun growth. It was good for me. I connected with people in completely different ways. So that's Shine On, if that appeals to you, or if you're just looking for different kinds of fun things to do in your life. And then Life Glows On is really about reconnecting with your creativity and thinking about it in terms of legacy and what you want to leave to the world. And this was very much spurred by COVID. And so that was my story on that. And that gives you a whole bunch of other ideas if you're thinking about in those lines. So you might want to click through and see if those speak to you. Now, if you want to get ideas, one of the things I started doing, and I think my readers pointed it out to me first, was that all of my heroines in my novels, my narrators, all have to have a job. And I chose to pick kind of interesting jobs that I thought which I didn't even realize until my readers started telling me that they were getting ideas for their own lives from my characters, which I think is really cool. And so now I do it really very intentionally. So in my Wild Water Walking Club series, which Walk the Talk is my latest, the heroine took a buyout from her big corporate gig in marketing, and she has become a certified health coach. This series is about 3 women whose lives are imploding, each in a different way, and they start walking together every day, and they kind of walk and talk their way back together until their life crumbles again, and then they do it, and there's a fun trip in each one. So it's a fun book, but the heroine is on that journey from how do I use my benefits package until my buyout benefits run out and get myself into this whole other career, and how do I actually make a living from it? So there's some useful tips in there. One of the other women is a landscape designer, and she is taking over the family lavender farm. And then the other woman is a 3rd grade teacher who's kind of looking forward to, her dream is to totally downsize and either go cross country in a micro minibus, I think she calls it, or get a tiny house. So that's like her fantasy. Must Love Dogs, which is now which became the movie, is now an 8-book series. The heroine's a preschool teacher, but her sister's an events planner, and there's lots of other fun careers in there too. And then in the individual books, Best Stage Plans, the heroine's a home stager. Life's a Beach, she leaves a sales job and tries to make a living as a sea glass jewelry maker, and she's dating a glass blower. In Summer Blowout, it's a family of hair stylists and makeup artists, and that whole journey. On and on. Each one, Time Flies, the heroine is a metal sculptor. So there's just lots of good ideas for you. So again, click a book cover, scroll through the excerpt, and maybe it will give you an idea or a tweak, or maybe you just need a break from what you're doing and a fun book to read. So that's my thought on that. Now, moving over to Emory's page, and I found this look, we're up here, join our reinvention workshop. So one of the things it was very interesting to me, which again, I did not know and didn't do intentionally, but if you go to ece.emory.edu, my heroines in my books, there's kind of an overlap with the courses of study that they offer, which I just thought was super fun. So for instance, I know they have they have landscape design, they offer creative writing, cybersecurity, great job if you want to live on the beach, digital marketing, event planning, there's a health coach training, there's paralegal, which is a nice recession-proof job, lots of cool things. And if you go down to learning updates, again, you're doing your research, you're figuring out where you want to go, plenty of other places to go, but here are two to start. Here are some learning updates and like free webinars that you can take to find out more about different things. And I admit that I've dipped into some of these as research, so it can work like really well. So just something to think about there. So make sure you use that. And again, you will be hearing from Emory with information so that you can replay all of this. So I also want to talk about connecting. So let me go here. This is how, if you haven't done this, now, if you're not sure whether you came and signed up for my newsletter, you can go to clairecook.com, and there are a couple places on that homepage to sign up. If you sign up twice, my newsletter sender, the company that does that, will just delete one of them. So you're not going to get two emails the next time. So don't worry about it. So when in doubt, just do it again. So that's a good way to connect. I'm going to go through all our notes. I'm going to take a bunch more questions, but I don't want to forget to tell you this. So I am going to figure out the best way and most fun way to send the content of any questions that I missed, and wrap up and send you that. So I'll do that. It's usually about once a month that I send things, but I'll also let you know if I'm doing any more of these or doing any on other subjects, or I have any other fun things that might be good ideas for you. You can also find me on Facebook, which that's Claire Cook author page, but you can also friend me. I have a separate friend page. I try to keep it right under that 5,000 people so that I can, friend more people. But if you also would like that page, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want to talk more about reinvention and dreams and ask questions, I do have a Facebook group, so you can just go in there and search that, or if you just facebook.com/groups/ Never Too Late Reinvention. It's just a really nice group of people. It's not super active. There's nothing salesy. There's none of that upsell and buy that. There's none of that happening, but it's a good place to ask a question. I try to remember to go in there and post quotes. I'm always there if someone asks the question. In between books, I tend to be a little more active when I'm writing. It's like, oh, I'll get there. And I don't always. I also have to tell you, I'm so proud of myself that I actually have a QR code to my website. So if you're holding your phone, you can scan that and it will take you right there. I'm pretty proud of that. Talk about not becoming a dinosaur. So Also, Instagram, I was kind of late to the Instagram party, but I'm there. I'm on Twitter still, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Goodreads. I'm on TikTok. I'm barely there. But what I would suggest again, and I will tell you, for people just getting going on social media, I have been the first follower for so many people. So don't worry about it. I know what that feels like in the beginning. Oh my gosh, I only have 3 followers. It's so embarrassing. Just start following interesting people. So what I suggest to you, if you're on any of these, follow me. I'll follow you back. Look for the people who have also come in at that same time, follow them, and we can all start connecting to each other. We can do that in the Facebook group too. Every once in a while, I'll do that. I'm all about authentic followers. I'm not about like having all these random people just so that you have this number that looks good to the outside world. But I think it's a genuinely good place to connect to people. And I always do follow back, but user error, I have occasionally missed people. So if I somehow miss you, just put a comment on one of my posts, just say something and I'll look and I'll see that I haven't followed you yet and I'll do it. So that's a trick to use, not just with me, but with other people. It works really, really well. So those are just things. Connect, get yourself out there. And I learn sometimes if I have an extra minute, I'll just go through social media looking for the cool things that people are doing. It gives me ideas or things that they're struggling with or worrying about. And it gives me ideas for my own books. It gives me ideas for ways I can give back, for things I can talk about in my newsletter, for future books and workshops, all of that. So that's kind of where, so think about doing that. Connect, but in meaningful ways. I am so, there are just so many people out there. It's just all about numbers and upselling and this and that. And I am completely not into that. I think authenticity and things that are real are super important. So I want to what do you want me to talk more about? What would be helpful to you? Where are you struggling? Let's have some questions come in about that, and Carolyn can help me. I want this to be of value to you. What would help you at this point? Where are you saying, oh, I didn't quite get that? I do have a tendency, my northern roots, that I have a tendency to talk too quickly sometimes. And I'm just trying to give you everything I can. If I could like do a brain dump and give you everything I know, I would, but you'd probably get some stuff you don't want either. So what can I answer? Carolyn, anything coming in that would be good? Or I can make my best guess, but.
I have one that's asking the women's conference from the Shine On book. Will you do that again?
Oh, the women's conference from Never Too Late, I think. So my book, Never Too Late, the structure of it, I wrote it around, I spoke at this conference on Isla Mujeres, Mexico, which means Island of Women. And it's a conference called We Move Forward. And I'm guessing whoever asked that question was there. It was an awesome conference. I did the keynote a couple years before COVID. I can't even think of how many years it's been now. But they have a presence still on website. Janine Hallowell who's a really wonderful woman, it's her conference. And I'm almost positive I will reach out to her and I will absolutely share that via the newsletter when that gets up and running again. I'm sure it's been a COVID thing that it hasn't. But if I always let people know if I look forward to doing more conferences like that. I mean, I love being able to Zoom like this with so many people and we can all be home in our pajamas, at least me in my pajama bottoms. And, there's something very cool. And Isla Mujeres, Mexico, is just it's I guess south of Cancun, and it's just this really cool thing. I met the most wonderful women, but if you want to have the virtual experience, I would Never Too Late is a quick, fun read, and the ebook is very inexpensive. I would suggest downloading that one and going through that. But yeah, I think just the nice person who asked that question, yeah, I'm guessing Janine's going to do it again. If not, I'll keep my ears open. I know for me, as someone who gets invited to speak at a lot of conferences, since COVID, there hasn't been much of that going on. They've pivoted to online. But I'm optimistic we'll all be out there again. And I would love to speak at another We Move Forward conference. She just brought the most interesting speakers in from all over the world. And it was just such a fun thing. And just to have all these women together on this island wandering around, you'll get the whole feel if you read the book. So the way I structured my nonfiction book, which was kind of a hybrid of nonfiction and fiction, because people said, I don't even like nonfiction, but this read like a novel. It's because that's what I was first. So I just kind of made my own book and told the story of that conference and then fit all the other people's dreams. I also share a lot of dreams, and most of this I've synthesized for you here. But if you want it to expand, and I profiled women who started different, reinventions that worked and some that didn't, and some that pivoted. And when I do, I know I will revisit that and take it, because again, COVID has changed so much for us. But in all of that, if you're willing to pivot, if you're willing to be flexible, I have different opportunities now, but there's always going to be a new opportunity. So I just try to stay open, and I don't spend a lot of time mourning the things that I'm not doing right now, because they're just not happening. But I think We Move Forward is a good conference. But these are the things I let people know in my newsletter. You'll be the first to know in everything. And then I go from there, and I'll try to get it out on social media. But I do find that's a little spottier. So if you want to stay connected, newsletter first. And again, anytime, and I'm not talking about just mine, if you get a newsletter from anyone that isn't working for you anymore, go down to the bottom and unsubscribe. Usually they won't even know. But this is your life. You don't want it to be bogged down by things that aren't resonating for you. I think that's super important. So another question?
Yes, we got another question for you. How do you decide which project to start with when you have a dozen of them going through your mind?
Good. Thank you. And that's on my notes. So thank you. You caught me, whoever asked that. And thank you for grabbing it, Carolyn. Okay. So creative people, I find, and a lot of times these questions and the people who come to these workshops tend to be very creative, are good at lots of things. So it's easy to start spinning and to have too many ideas. It happens all the time. But my experience has been, if you pick one and focus on that, you'll go from good to better. When you start just, there's a point in every project you take on where the grass is greener on anything else that you're not doing. It's just, some of it's that FOMO thing, the fear of missing out, but some of it is just, it gets hard. So anything else looks easier. Like a couple chapters into every book that I'm writing, I start thinking, oh, this is the stupidest idea I've ever had. Why am I not writing this book instead? And what was interesting, when the Must Love Dogs movie was happening, Gary David Goldberg, who was the director, who also created, Spin City and MASH and Family Ties, we became good writer buds. And he said that always happened to him too. Partly into any project, the grass is greener under every single project in the world. So know that it's part of the process. So you pick one, and as I said before, you have a measurable place where you're going to keep going that far. But say you've got 12 ideas, which is, I think, what the real question is. You've got 12 ideas. How do you know which one to pick? Okay, I'm going to say,
You got another when you're ready.
I'm sorry?
As we have another question when you're ready.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, thanks. So when you have all these great ideas, how do you know which one to pick? I say, if you feel equally about all of them, do some research and pick the one that the world is most ready for, or the world is looking for, or is hitting the zeitgeist in a way that everybody's talking about these things, or starting to talk about. Try to get on the, ride that wave just as it's coming out. Sometimes you just are making a guess, but just pick the one that feels like might have the most chance of success. And some of it is what the world wants, but also what do you have to bring to it? The fact that I was a 40 forever woman probably makes it easier for, a marketing team to be able to think of pitching me as the author. So, I sort of had some street cred in the world because this is my life. So, which one, you put all these things together. But if there's one that's just most in your heart, go with that one. I mean, if it's really, really the one, so get quiet and think about it. But if there are two that are kind of vying for prominence, I would pick the one that has the most chance of success. Not that you can ever really judge these things, because I have to say with my books, they've all done pretty well. But some of the ones that have like landed me in People magazine or, being a pick for Good Morning America, I didn't see that one coming. I mean, I knew my readers would like them, but I didn't necessarily think that Life's a Beach would be the first one to hit the New York Times bestseller list. Like, really? Not that I don't love it, but if I were guessing for success, I'm always wrong. So, nobody knows. If we all knew, every project in the whole world would be a success. So basically, no one knows anything. So you do your research, you make your best guess, but you do the one that's in your heart always. I've never written a book that wasn't 100% in my heart. I just wouldn't. It's too much work. I mean, to work on a book that I didn't really believe in. And I don't think I could do it as well if my heart wasn't in it. So, and then pick one and just put the others away until you take that one as far as you can get with it. If you're jumping between 3 or 4 projects, you're diffusing your energy. You really are. I do think it's okay. Maybe you have a few back burner things, but especially in the beginning, I think it's way easy to get scattered. Even if I'm in the middle of producing some content for like a deal that my entertainment lawyer is working on or whatever, I always get my pages done first, and then I might stay up late to get what I need to do for that. But I've got tunnel vision on the thing that's going to move me forward, which again, for me is usually my, so far for 23 years has been my next book. And I hope that answered that. And it's hard. It's a flip a coin if it comes to that. If you're between two, flip a coin. I would not always, unless the person has specific expertise, I probably wouldn't ask someone else at that point that early, unless there's someone, that's another thing. Who's got the career? Who's got the life that you'd love to have? You can stalk that person real easily now. And I don't mean in a creepy way, but find out how they're doing it. Follow them online. Maybe you'll get an idea for which project you should pick based on that person. People do that to me, all the time. I think that's fine. You don't have to completely reinvent the wheel. Someone else who wants to do this particular reinvention, how are they doing that? Don't copy. You're not copying them. You're just using it for inspiration. The way I just showed you those 2 websites, to use those for inspiration. The whole world out there is inspiration. So use it, and you try to be intentional, and that might help you decide which one. But just don't keep jumping. Take it, a reasonable way and far along the road. And then there's a point based on your SMART goals where you're going to stop and reassess. And you may walk away for a while and then go back to it. It happens all the time. And often if one project hits, first question you're going to get asked, what else do you have? And then suddenly they can all come forward. But I have found most of what works for me is that I don't start things that I don't finish. I start and I go, even when I'm second guessing myself. I push past it and I stay with it. And then I'll get to the end and I'll say, oh, I'm so glad I wrote that book. And then I hear from readers who are also glad that I wrote it, and it's all good. But oh my gosh, there's agony in it. Important things like that, big things that we do, our dreams, they're not easy. Again, if it were easy, I can use books as an example. Look behind me on my shelves, how lucky am I to have all those books? If it were easy, we would all have a bunch of books like that. So these things are hard and they're so worth doing. And you'll feel so good about yourself, just completing, just finishing. It's the not finishing that feels so bad. And the burying, as we've talked about. Okay, I know you have another question.
Yes. This question here is going to be, do you ever have a book that you finished, but it did not sell?
I'm grateful that I think because I took so long not writing the books that are in my heart, I have been very lucky in my own experience. I've also taken a certain amount of control in my own career so that I can write the books. No, I'm lucky. I actually, fortunately, in my personal journey, I got to a point, I want to say probably 2 or 3 books in, that I was able to get contracts for the next Claire Cook book, a 2-book or a 3-book contract, next Claire Cook book. I didn't even have to pitch the actual book. They just wanted, again, this is authenticity. They wanted me, my themes, my style, my voice, my characters. And if you can get that people, it was a Claire Cook book and that's what they wanted. So I'm very fortunate. I know tons of really good writers who have many books they couldn't sell. And to them, again, it's what I've been saying all along, stay with one book, take it as far as you can. It's okay to put it aside and go to the next one, because if they want one of them and it does well, they're going to ask you what else you have. And then you could get them all published. So stay with it. But also take the lessons. I talk about this a lot in Never Too Late. But if you're getting rejections on projects, on books, there's a point where you start getting, again, I use the golden nuggets. You start getting not just form letters, but you're getting actual information back from the people rejecting you. There are golden nuggets in that. You may not want to hear it in the beginning, but if you take a breath, they're telling you there's either something about the market that they don't know who's going to buy this book, or something about your writing needs to grow a little bit, or this just wasn't the person for you. It's subjective. All of this is subjective. It's like when you're selling a house. It doesn't matter if everybody else hates the house. All it takes is one person to buy it. All it takes is one person to buy the book who will believe that audience is out there. So I would say to the person who asked the question, just keep trying. And it happens. Just because it didn't happen to me, it happens all the time to people. And I get plenty of other kinds of rejections. So don't worry about me not getting rejected enough. It happens to all of us. But yeah, it's a story I hear all the time. And also the publishing industry, do your research. It has changed drastically. Along with everything else in our world. So there are many ways in. If you're not getting in the traditional route, there are ways to be, have supportive publishing or to self-publish, or there are many ways to, you can start at Jane Friedman's website. You can take the business of writing class from Emory, which I have taught in the past. And, there are lots of ways, but there's tons of information. Start Googling and just connect. You can connect through social media. I know people who've met their agents on Twitter or met editors. They've gone to conferences. They've pitched in person because they pitch better in person than they do in query letters. So it could be the query is off. So just keep in all of this. You take the rejection, you step back, you regroup, do your research, and then you pivot and you go back from another angle, and you don't quit. It's your dream. It's your dream. You keep going. Is there another one? I bet we can take one more.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
What is your best resource? I know you spoke about social media, but that's another question.
Oh, my best resource for me personally, it's my website. Honestly, I get requests to be interviewed. I get offers of deals of foreign publishing, of people who are interested in optioning my stuff for the screen. Again, having that hub is everything. People can come directly to me. They don't have to go to my people. They come to me, you know, and so that's my personal greatest resource. But if you're at the early stages, you're probably not there yet. So I would say have that on your, you know, two or three steps from now. Once you get it up and running, you want that hub at some point. But in the beginning, my greatest resource isn't going to be yours, because we're all different. So in the beginning, it's going to be what makes the most sense to you. Do you need a course? Do you need to just go poke around online? Do you need to read some books to get the feel of other women who are living this? You know, do you need to connect, join some Facebook groups? You know, go into Facebook and just start topically searching. I mean, that's how you'd find my Never Too Late Reinvention, but you could find tons of other groups. So I hope I'm answering that, but I feel that mine is my website. Absolutely. I mean, that's how I connect with everyone and how everyone finds me. If I'm suddenly, because, you know, Twitter has disappeared and you can't find me, you always know that you can go to my website, and you always know that you'll hear from me through my newsletter to find out, you know, when the next this is or whatever. So, that for me, and I do believe in that concept of having that place. And even on social media, if I'm not spending a lot of time there, like I should be on LinkedIn way more, I should be on Pinterest more, I just have it, I just have a presence. So it's almost, I think of it as a little billboard, a little business card that kind of tells people where else they can find me, which once again, I'd either mention where else they can find me on social, or send them to my website. So think about what makes sense for you, and don't stress yourself out. You cannot do it all. I can't do it all. I do spend a little bit of time saying, oh, I should do more of this. I just said that, but I don't really worry about it. I try to do the things that feel are the most heartfelt for me, and feel the most and bring value, and also give me information that will help me serve, reach out to my readers and help my books resonate for them. So that's how I look at it. And I let I do have some pretty decent non-celebrity numbers on some of my social media, but I don't worry about it. I worry more about not following. I try to look for the people that I can help support too. And I don't do, as I said, building these massive meaningless numbers that are mostly like spam bots. I just don't like all of that. I'm not into the upsell thing. And I'm just, you share, you do the work that's in your heart and you share. So, and hopefully you're lucky enough to make a living doing that, or you have another job that supports you and gives you the time that you can do it. There's always a way to make it happen. So I truly believe that. So I'm so sorry. Is there one more? I think we're out of time.
Yeah, we're out of time.
Oh, we're out of time, everybody.
I had two more, but we out of time. So
do you want me to answer them like really fast? 20 seconds for each one?
Okay.
I'll do it.
At what point do you find an editor? That's one. And what do you think of blogging?
Okay. So what point do you find an editor? Take it as far as you can by yourself. Get some other eyes on it. At that point, you might want to let in a couple of friends. I always think not necessarily other writers, but who are the people that you know whose noses are always in a book? Ask them to read for you. And then I would probably send out a few queries first, see if you can sell it on your own. And then at that point, maybe you take it to a work in progress class, which I know Emory offers, lots of places offer them, or you hire a freelance editor. And know that sometimes teachers edit. I don't edit. I don't read for people. That's just not, I choose to share this way. But yeah, do what you can first, then bring some other people in. I talk about it in detail, so you might want to read Never Too Late, because I tell that in a much longer than 20 seconds. And then the other question was, I'm sorry, I just blanked, Carolyn. The second.
What do you think of blogging?
Oh, what do I think of blogging? Okay, I'm a faux blogger, I call it. I blog, which is essentially putting evergreen content under my blog. I think there was a time where people just did really, really big things with their blogs, and they blogged books and this and that. I think if the blogging is a way to lead to the book that you're writing, Or if you have a following for your blog, it can still lead to a book deal. You can have a blog that picks up a whole bunch of followers, and suddenly people are coming to you and saying, hey, this could be a book, and you could get a deal, and they could help bring you through the writing of it. But unless you have a following, it's hard to do. So I would say blogging is great. And if so, start researching about all the latest stuff. You can start driving your social to your blog. I do have a blog on my website, but I try to stick more to evergreen content, by which I mean it's not kind of dated. I'll pull things from my newsletter and make them into something that can live on my blog. But don't let, unless your blog is your dream, don't let it take away from the next step on your dream, is how I would look at it. Because if there's no one reading the blog, don't put a whole bunch of time into it. Build that first, and then you might circle back to it. But if it's helping you, I know people who blogged books first, and it's just kept them on track for their book. So something to think about. Okay, I am so sorry. I would stay here all day, but I do know that Emory has other things to do, and so do you, all of you. So please stay connected to me. Know that you will get by Tuesday a letter, an email from Emory with a link so that you can rewatch this if you want to. Know that you can always connect with me. Know that you'll hear from me. It'll be probably a couple of weeks. I'll pull all this together. I'm going to look very closely at all your comments and make sure I answer everything. And find me. I'll follow you back anywhere. We'll connect wherever you want to connect. And thank you for coming. I wish we could go hang out for a couple hours more. Thank you. Take care. Bye.